I'm Nicolo Fonte. I'm the choreographer of the Heart Space, and I am here working with Boulder Ballet, setting the ballet.
And I'm Sadie. I am working as Nicolo's stager to help assist in setting the ballet. We are with Boulder Ballet for 2 weeks, and then we'll come back in March for the final performance. Nicolo,
Yes.
the music is so wonderful and evocative, and it just fills up any room. How did you find this piece, and what made you pick it for the Heart Space in particular?
Yeah, I agree with you that I think the music is particularly beautiful and very large. You know, it really does occupy a lot of space, but and fortunately that space is quite beautiful. I've been using Ezio Bosso. That's the composer, an Italian composer named Ezio Bosso, and I've been working with his music for several ballets. And I can't remember, I don't think the Heart Space was the first one, but I was always drawn to his music because it's very, first and foremost, it's very danceable. It's really, really danceable music. It's countable. It's got, interesting rhythm. Of course, a lot of it is mostly strings, which I really love, like string orchestras. And so it makes the sound, really soar, And so when you're listening to it and then you have the visual element of the choreography, you can really, as an audience member, really get, basically sucked into the action in a way that you might not with, another type of music, So music is a really important choice to me. It's of the, one of the primary reasons, to choreograph. So you hear a piece of music and then you start to have certain ideas about what you will do with it. So how did I come about it? It's in a library of music. I have an iTunes library that it's just like, I just bank music. I hear it, I buy it, and then I put it, aside for a little while until it's time for the right idea to maybe use that piece of music, arises. Yeah.
The pas de deux music, especially, it's...
So the second movement.
The second movement, it starts with this wonderful group piece, and it ends with this wonderful finale pose. It could almost be the end of the ballet, but it's not. And then there's a sweep of the stage, and then it's just these two characters with this music that always just made me think of birds on a pond or something. It's just so centering and grounding and still, and you can just hear every instrument in it, which is so beautiful. And so when you heard that piece, did you always know that would be a pas de deux?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So the second, the music we're talking about is Ezio Bosso's Symphony No. 2, Under the Voices, and the second movement in particular is quite beautiful. But you said it's slightly quirky. There's a little quirkiness about it, and but it also feels very grounding, like it's kind of like a stabilizing kind of music, coming from the energy of the first movement, which is quite explosive. So yes, I always imagined it as a duet, a pas de deux, or starting that way anyway, but it's 7 minutes long, and so
it builds.
They needed a break as well. Like the two that got chosen to do the pas de deux also needed a break, so they're interludes or like interruptions where other people come on, and then it develops into something else. But I didn't map out the whole ballet in my head just listening to the music. I mean, the ballet really comes to life when you're in the studio with the dancers, and then you have those people in front of you. Sadie was in the actual creation, for those of you who might be wondering. You have a certain idea, and then you see it, and you say, oh, that idea doesn't work. I'm going to do this. Or people make mistakes, dancers. They literally make a mistake, and then you're like, oh, that is so much better than what I had originally planned. Like the mistake is, and then if I don't take advantage of it, well, then I'm just a crappy choreographer. You know what I mean? You have to really take advantage of those things that surface. So that's when, you're really engaging with what's happening and different possibilities arise. And that's really exciting. And I think dancers can feel that in the room, like.
And then there's an ownership of each part.
Right.
And
absolutely.
What I love about rewatching the ballet on Aspen Santa Fe Ballet, and I know all of those dancers so well, thank goodness, I love them dearly. It's beautiful to see everyone's real character come to life in each of their little moments on stage.
Yeah. I mean, and then
really nice.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Aspen Santa Fe Ballet, because the ballet was commissioned by Aspen Santa Fe Ballet, Tom Osberger and Jean-Philippe Malati. And so it's interesting that you mentioned the first question you asked was about the music, and prior to me really settling on the music, Tom was the artistic director, were talking about what the next piece could be, because I think this was like the 9th commission.
You were a star.
It was like
over
the
there.
9th commission from me. And they were like, so what are you going to do? And Tom and I had been talking, Tom and I are good friends now, and we were talking about the sort of trend in contemporary ballet being so dark and so apocalyptic, and really kind of like choreographers choosing difficult music, and we were both sort of commiserating about that, and we were just like, why does contemporary ballet have to be so dark? Can't you express joy in a contemporary way, or still do big, brash, exciting, challenging, risky movement and be happy about it? And not be like, oh, I'm really like contemplating the end of the earth, which very well may happen. But I'm just saying there's also joy, in life, and beauty in life. And so we were talking about that, and I really we were on the same page that we wanted the ballet to go in that direction. And that was also a heavy influence, or a big influence on, finally deciding on these particular pieces of music from that symphony, because of the joy in them and the explosive, not only joy, but it's like explosively joyous, it's just so, makes you smile,
It does,
Yeah.
it does.
So.
And a lot of your movement, I'm lucky to have done 3 Nicolo ballets, 3 of them. And all of them, there's a huge movement. It's like, if you think you're here, you're wrong. It has to be even bigger. And what's so special about the Heart Space is it's nothing but a celebration of how expansive you can get in your movement.
Yeah.
And to have picked such a beautiful score for it as well. And the lighting is so bright and colorful. You are in a world where you want to feel open.
Yeah.
Even if you're it's not a ballet saying, you better be happy. That's not what the ballet is saying. It's just finding space for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's also, I mean, it's difficult to well, not difficult, but sometimes performers say, like, I want you to have a natural expression, like like the joy should come out from the experience that's happening on stage, and in collaboration with you reacting to that music and the energy created between all the dancers and so on and so forth. And that's kind of what you did. That was your approach, which was great. But on some levels, it's interesting, because some people might not get that. And so then there's this like element of artifice, but you have to do it, what I mean? Like, as the performer, because that is where the direction of the ballet goes. But I would imagine, though, when you're in it, it's hard not to do that, hard not to be having a good time. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not an idiot, I think, like, I can see the joy. And then I just want the dancers to be able to almost overdo that, so that the audience really can feel it. And I think that's what audiences react to and respond to, is if they sense there's an experience happening on stage and they're actually witnessing it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not like they're doing it for us. Of course they're doing it for us. We paid a ticket.
And they're on a stage.
And they're on a stage and we're sitting watching. Of course they're there. But it's like, really, you sort of force their, you have to force them to look, which is why the ballet starts the way it does. It starts in complete stillness. And you would think, well, that's not very joyous. It's just like nothing is happening. But it's like, it's a way to draw people in. Like, what is that? It's like, is that a sculpture? Are those actual dancers? Like, what is that? And then they're like, oh, wow, that's so beautiful. And then it starts to move, and then it just kicks in. And you're like, I got them. I captured their imagination, and now I can take them along, for their joyride. Yeah.
It's a good little trick you've got there.
Well,
Definitely worked.
For this piece, it actually worked.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
So,
it definitely
did.
Yeah. This interview is happening only day 2 of the restaging process.
Right. Yeah.
But what are you looking forward to about the Heart Space being back on stage? It's been 10 years.
It's 10 years since the creation.
Since the creation.
But Aspen Santa Fe Ballet.
We did it a lot.
You did it for a number of
Probably
years. Yeah.
3 years,
yeah,
I
3
believe.
years into it, yeah. But this is the first time it's being
redone.
What am I looking forward to about it? Oh, it's one of the works that I'm really proud of. I mean, I've made a lot of ballets in my choreographic career, and not everyone is a mega hit, but this one in particular I think is quite special, and I'm really happy about it. So I'm just really happy that it's having a life again. And I'm really happy being here. Yesterday was really, speaking about joy, yesterday was really joyful. I mean, it was really, really great to start working on it again. And, thankfully, you're so on top of it and the movements and stuff. And so the dancers were great, very fast.
Yeah,
really
we have a
fast.
Very quick bunch.
Yeah,
we're lucky.
They learned the material very quickly. And I think it's great that on 2 different levels at least that that I get to see the ballet again, but I also get to see it with different people now.
Very different people.
And so very different, and it's like, let's see what they do with it. And and you have to give them space. I'm not one of those choreographers where I insist it has to be exactly the same.
Right.
Because it won't be.
Right.
Anyway. No matter what, no matter how I try to say, do it exactly like you see it on the video, it's just never going to happen. So if you don't give people room to reinterpret within reason, within the confines of the structure of the work, then I think it's going to backfire. It's not going to work to your advantage.
And
so
that
joy, that real joy is not going to come through. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that as well, to seeing different people, interpret it, because it was so associated with Aspen Santa Fe Ballet and, your generation that it was created on. And it was so associated with that group of people. And so now it'll be really interesting to see another group do it. Yeah. And I still think, it's a 10-year-old ballet. It was created and it premiered in 2014, but I still think it holds its own, and it doesn't look,
for sure.
It doesn't look 10 years old. I mean, I could have choreographed it yesterday, kind of thing. I mean, I hope that doesn't sound like I'm boasting, but it's just I hear tennis players break down their games, and they're just like, well, I played amazingly well today, and but it's just kind of analytical, what I mean? It's and they also go the other way, I played crap today, so
No,
so in the same way, I just feel like I'm trying to be objective about it, that I think the ballet is successful. It works on many levels. And so I'm really happy with it. And I'm very excited to see another group do it.
Yeah. And it was always a joy to perform.
Yeah,
and
good.
I don't think any of my fellow dancers who were in the original cast will mind me saying, we have been texting. It's been so fun. I'll capture a screenshot of Emily in this huge ponche with her leg way up. And she has 2 babies now. She's a realtor, so very different world. Or send something to Craig, and it's just so fun. We all still remember how much we loved performing that ballet.
Oh, that's great. That's so
every
nice
single
to hear.
time.
Yeah.
And for me, just bringing it back to these dancers.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear
fun.
about that too, all that joy, because I mentioned it yesterday briefly. It was quite a difficult and challenging time for me. So
Right.
it was like I I made probably the most joyous ballet ever at that time, and my father had just passed away. And do you remember that? When I was in the
Yeah.
studio. I came
Yeah.
in January. I was there 2 days, and then I got the call that he had passed away, and I had to go back to New York, and then I came back and finished the ballet, and it was just like, let's just proceed and see how it goes. And it was really, really interesting to be feeling that loss and creating a work that was so full of joy and so life affirming. Really was about, like, yeah, things might be, not looking so great, but the flip side of that is, it's cyclical. And it will get better, and there's always that hope, right? There's always that hope, and really that's what the ballet is about. It's, can you really exist in the space of the heart, and what does that mean, And that's like your emotional center,
Yeah.
So to be fully human, you've got to feel sadness as well. It can't all be joy, or easy, There's
Right.
always some struggle or something. But if you only look at it like that, then that's also a problem. And so the heart space was kind of like a tribute to that side of humanity. Like even when things are super tough, you have to find a way to sort of find
Keep
the
going
joy again.
forward.
Yeah. And that to find pleasure in community. Do you know what I mean? And really that's why it's such a group piece, where it's like it's about the community. And there's all those little vignettes where somebody falls
actually
on the
moving
floor.
people
Yeah, no,
on
someone
the
drops
floor.
on the floor, and then the group races over and you help her up. Emily was that character. She kept
Yeah.
falling,
Yeah.
and everybody just kept going over to her and being like, "Come on, get up." Get up and throw your leg in the air, of course. Every time I
Get
fall
the
on the
leg up.
floor, I wind up in some high extension. So there's all those little things. And the audience doesn't really have to understand that. You know what I mean? Like they don't have to
Sure.
understand the literal motivation for creating that. But they have to be, interested in it. And I think they have to accept it, like, oh, did she just fall? Oh, but look how great it is, like whatever, it's like that kind of thing. They don't have to literally understand that you guys are helping someone in time of need.
Right.
And it's like a 3-second thing, but it's there. The image is there. And then that image leads to the next image, and then so on and so forth. And that's really how the ballet evolved, And so each one of the characters are just a tiny part of me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and a little part of that experience that I went through with my father, because I was quite close to him towards the end of his life. And so it was just really a great process to go through.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a really helpful and helped me process the grief in a great way.
Very positive, healthy, beautiful way.
Yeah, I think so too, yeah.
And you're now a certified yoga instructor.
I am an
Ashtanga.
Iyengar. No,
Iyengar.
Iyengar. Yes, I'm an Iyengar yoga, certified Iyengar yoga teacher.
Did that happen after the creation?
Oh yeah, that
of
happened
Heart
during
Space?
the pandemic.
During the pandemic. Okay. Do you feel that transformed the way you think about the heart space? The way
Oh,
you're
yeah.
talking now
Yeah.
sounds like you always had that connection and idea of internal
Yeah,
peace.
I've been a yoga practitioner for like 20 years, so I was definitely already a pretty dedicated practitioner when I was making the heart space. So that was also a great source of solace and helped me process my grief too. Like a yoga practice also will definitely help you recenter yourself. But now, yeah, definitely, I think the things I look for in dancers has changed.
Oh, interesting.
Directly related to
The-
my being a teacher of
Wow.
yoga now. Definitely. I am not only concerned with the physical part of it. I
Yeah.
really want to see the internal experience manifesting in an outward expression. So that's really about your imagination, right? So you've got, and I'm really looking for that. So I used to be a little bit of a Nazi with like feet and legs and all of that, and now like that almost never concerns me anymore.
That's
Really
amazing.
doesn't. I mean, of course, you have to have. I mean, we're working with professional ballet companies, so there's always a professional standard, right? There's always
a high
the bottom
level
line,
there.
right? There's always you got to have the bottom line, right? But within that framework, then I'm like, no, I don't. It's not that I don't want their dancers to really fully embody the movement, right? Because that's what yoga is also. It's embodiment.
And
But
pure presence.
yeah. But it's also that I want the ability to use their body truly as a tool of expression, not just for the sake of lifting your leg. And that's where it gets tricky for some dancers, right?
It's having that connection of
Yeah.
what is making you lift your leg. And if you're thinking of it more from deep within, there's going to be a difference to just bottoming the leg, or like your whole body suddenly gets involved, and there's something more satisfying for humans in the audience watching.
And if we talked briefly about it earlier, like characters, like, and if you think like you're sort of already embodying a particular kind of character in this sort of abstract work, then you have to start to use your imagination and say, okay, so if my character, how would my character do an attitude pirouette? You know, how would my character react to so-and-so touching my shoulder? So it doesn't become generic. It's like everybody's the same. You know, this is the big problem I have with classical ballet now. No one knows the difference between Giselle and, you know, and the Swan Queen. Everyone does it the same, more or less. And it's like to say, how would Giselle actually move?
Yeah.
What would she, not just because someone's telling you, point your foot here, do your penché here.
The hair falls out
your hair
here.
falls out here. You're on this note. It's not that. It's how would that. So you have to. It's not acting, right? It's not. It's like you're acting with your movement, and so that's different. That's a different mental process. And this is the thing that I really try to get dancers to understand. It's not like I want you to interpret it in your face.
Yeah.
You can as part of your body, of course you can, but it's much more about if you're developing, you're using your imagination and saying, my character is this character in this group of people. So how does my character do this? You can't only rely on what the choreographer is telling you, because then you're on stage and I'm not there and I'm not barking, you know, I'm not screaming, you know, commands at you. So you have to own it. Right? And I'm here to guide you. So that's the change, I think. I feel like more like I used to be, as a choreographer, very controlling. I wanted everything done on the right count. And I don't think I'm any less demanding, but just the focus has shifted. I'm much more interested in helping you take ownership. But what does that, you know, what does that mean? You can't just do whatever you want. So we're working on, you know, like sort of almost tasks, you know, you have to complete those tasks, or guidance, you know, I'm guiding you. And then within that, then you can just sort of let it go, you know?
So beautiful.
So I think, and again, and that's what I think audiences respond to.
Yeah.
They're rooting for you. They're actually, audiences are rooting for the dancers.
Yeah.
They always want to understand the protagonist or the antagonist or whatever. Or if it's a group piece, then understand the dynamic of the group. And they want the group to succeed. So you can almost get away with anything, you know what I mean? As long as there's a reason to believe in what they're watching. And this is really what's changed over the years, and is, I think, directly related to how I teach yoga.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a gift, I see it, for the dancer to get to work with a choreographer who's empowering their movement.
Right. That's exactly what it's about. Yeah.
Did you have that in your dance career? How did you come up with this?
That is a loaded question.
Guruic way of Sherpaing these dancers.
So I am of a certain age, and that was not the way when I was dancing at all. So, and I worked with a very demanding choreographer, you know, towards the end of my career, which I, you know, learned so much from. But we were not encouraged really in some ways to be artists. We were just encouraged to be on the music,
Be on your
show up.
mark.
It was a little bit military in the
Okay.
approach, like robotic, like do what you're told, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And, and that, I'm not going to completely, frown on that, because I do think that makes you a better dancer, like a better technician. And there's a lot of value in that, to like be exact. Like, yes, I'm going for the exactness of the musicality or whatever, whatever. However, I don't know, I'm guessing approximately 2 years of that, then you're kind of like, okay, I got this. I can do exactly what you're asking me to do. But is there anything more? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is there anything more to this, or is that it? Is
Where does
that
the art go?
where right? Where am I in this? Like, where am I? Where's my imagination? How can I respond to the music differently? And stuff like that. And so, and I think by nature, I have a kind of natural born leadership quality, but I also am not interested at all in abusing that. So, and I think that's where it comes from. And maybe I learned from the directors or choreographers that I had worked with, and then not all of them were like that, but that I was like, I don't ever want to be that.
Right.
I just don't want to be that.
Right.
So I think the best way to encourage dancers or people in general to take ownership and empower them to invest their own imagination and their own abilities in what they're doing is to create the environment that will allow that to flourish. And if you don't, and I'm always the first one to say, well, sorry, I should finish that thought. And if you don't, then you're just going to sort of get a kind of robotic quality, which could also be good, but it's not what I'm interested in, right? And so I forgot what I was going to say. So maybe ask me another question.
That was beautiful, though.
Good.
I was very, very in it. And how long were you in your performance career? Is this quality that you're pulling from these dancers something you found? When did you find that for yourself when you were performing?
Oh, I didn't find that. That's a great question. I didn't find that for myself until very late in my career, to be honest. But already,
I wonder, that's probably very common, honestly.
maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, probably. I didn't really find that until the very end, and then I had already had got bitten by the choreography bug.
Oh, great.
And so I was already transitioning.
Nice.
I was I was choreographing and dancing at the same time, and then I was like transitioning out of dancing. And simultaneously, I had already begun an Iyengar yoga practice, which really influenced my decision-making process basically in the centering of myself and understanding really what I wanted to do, and that was to stop dancing and to try to become a choreographer, even though I was already doing it, but I wanted to do it I just wanted to stop dancing. And when I stopped, I was still at the age where I could have continued dancing for sure. And like I said, and I was coming into my own finally, as a dancer, meaning, like I started not caring about certain things and caring much more about other things. Like, I didn't care if my leg was, above 90 degrees, but it was like I did care about connection with who I was dancing with, and my relationship to the music, and and my rhythm, and who was I, at that moment, could I really even be alive on stage on a cellular level, like feel my cells coming to life, like that was the kind of thing that really interested me. But at the same time, I wanted to choreograph. And so I had to make a decision, and I did. And, but that idea of, didn't come to me very late. But I think I had it always when I choreographed, and I was always interested in choreography. Even from like when I was 19,
It's very
in
young.
school. Yeah, I had started, playing around with stuff. And
Was it solos, duets?
yeah,
group
solos, like
stuff?
just for myself, like just for myself playing around. And I always had an idea of how I wanted the body to move, and so then it's like I did it my way, and then I was like, oh, cool. Let's see if other people can do that.
Yeah.
You know, let's see if other people can sort of throw themselves into space, like, you know.
And then you started learning your own vocabulary.
Yeah, and then I started
very early
developing
on.
that. Yeah, and then, you know, it kind of just took off. So.
There's something really wonderful. We were talking earlier in the conversation about the audience needing to be drawn in to the dancers. And so from your choreographic perspective, when you're just starting the creation process, how do you balance that? That's so much to think about, of how do you let there be genuine joy in the movement from the dancers, matching the music. The ballet has to build. There has to be a reason why we're doing these movements, and also how to get them involved. That's so much to compose.
Yeah. But, you know, yeah, that's a great question, something, you know, great to try to tackle. Let's see if I can do it. You know, I think any work of choreography has to have different ports of entry. And I think when you start choreographing, you know, every choreographer probably has their own process, but I think a lot of choreographers, it's music. And so a lot of it is gut. Like if I love the music, I'm assuming everyone's going to love the music. You know what I mean? And then that kind of confidence, I guess. And then, so, but I started saying there are different ports of entry. So it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, the music is such a big part of it, but then so are the costumes.
Yeah.
You know, so is the lighting. You know, so, and then finally, not finally, but, you know, we get to it, like the dancers, right? So it's all of it, you know, and so some people will come and be like, oh my God, that music, I have never, you know, I had people in the audience ask me, oh, who is the composer? Can you give me, you know, what track, what's the name of that symphony or whatever? Others were like, oh my God, the lighting was unbelievable, right? And, you know, or people were like, oh yeah, just the whole thing was amazing, whatever. So, you know, already that tells you something. So when I start choreographing and I start visualizing something, I sort of say, okay, what are they hearing matched with what are they seeing? And it's also, it's not just the visual, it's energy. What's the energy emanating from the stage? And how am I gonna make that happen? Like, how is it going to cross from the stage to the audience? And music is a big part of that, right? That's the bridge.
Right, it is the bridge.
It's the bridge. It's the bridge that the audience can experience what's happening on stage, right? And so, which is why I like music loud.
Loud.
So that they can really get absorbed in it, right?
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, dancers, you said something about the dancers, like how do you, you know, basically you're telling them what to do and how do you create that sense of, you know, freedom or, you know, interpretation.
While still maintaining.
While still be, you know, and I think,
integrity of the piece.
right, but I think, you know, what dancers need most in my experience as a choreographer is direction. They don't need literally constantly saying you're off the music and, you know, that kind of thing, which are like loosely what we call corrections. I mean, corrections are a part of it. Sometimes, for whatever reason, I want that leg on that note, no discussion. Please just do it. Because it's an effect that I'm looking for. But mostly it's direction. Here's the direction. Here's what you're going after, right? And I find that most dancers, I would imagine actors as well, like working with a director, what they need is to be directed. But then you have to own it. You have to take that material and do something with it. It can't just be me telling you, this is the count, this is, you know, blah, blah, blah. And already for me as the choreographer, I'm bored out of my mind. And sometimes that's when I get a little impatient because I'm like, you know, come on. You know, so a dancer wants direction, needs direction, but they also have to offer the choreographer options.
Do you want to elaborate? What do you
well, you know, like saying, like, you know, sometimes, you know, many people think that, you know, I mean, many times people have said, oh my God, I can't believe how you came up with all those moves. I'm like, well, you know, it's normal for me. It's like, it becomes normal after a while. It's what I know how to do. It's probably the only thing, well, and teach yoga. It's the only thing, and probably talk. Those are the three things I know how to do. And so, but I don't come up with everything. You know, it's a collaboration, right? And that's the thing. And that takes a level of maturity. And when you get to that level of maturity where you're actually collaborating with the choreographer and saying, I wonder if I went this way. And already we're collaborating. I mean, those, what was that, 5 words? I wonder, whatever. You know, I wonder if I did it this way, you know, and then, you know, and I create a very open space, or, you know, like where people can feel free to, you know, suggest something.
Very open.
Yeah, I'm not like a dictator in the room. If I am, I'm a benevolent one. I'm happy about being, you know, but
Very,
not.
yeah.
But so anyway.
It's a safe space always.
So that's how, and then, so that's an option. Already it's an option. And that's what I'm talking about. And it can be something as simple as a movement. If I went to the left instead of to the right, he would be there, blah, 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 and then we're off. We're off. Or if I did this in plie instead of in releve, so that's with a bent knee or whatever, you know, everybody knows what ballet is. So
Everybody knows ballet terms.
yeah, so, you know, then we're off. And then that's also already empowering, especially if the choreographer says, oh yeah, great idea, let's do it like that. Then for the dancer, that feels great. Already that's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Now,
There's
you know,
this beautiful give and take happening.
right, and that has to be there. I mean, no choreographer wants to walk into a room and just tell everybody what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, those days are long gone.
Very.
Yeah,
Even,
nobody wants that.
yeah, the classical companies now are all doing contemporary work, and there's an element of improvisation, or at least understanding one's own artistry that dancers have to have now.
Right.
And you see it in creation processes. Yeah. If there's a choreographer who's just pouring their soul out, and then the dancers in the space aren't giving anything in return, it's harder to find this boisterous build of movement when there's no bridge between. But it does take quite an amount of experience for dancers to know and trust how to do that.
And here's and I don't know if you'll remember this or not, but and maybe it didn't really apply to you. But it's interesting that we're talking about how wonderful the experience of the Heart Space was. But I also remember in the beginning, you know, Tom and I had this really clear idea about making this very joyous contemporary work, and you guys had already worked with me on other ballets, and I was coming in, and suddenly I was like, I want you to smile. And some of you guys just were like struggling with that, because we were in that contemporary mode of like, oh, you don't smile? You barely even look at the person you're dancing with. And I was like, look in their eyes, like, you know, like make that connection and be happy about it. And I won't mention names, but I know specific people struggled with it and even came to me and were like, I'm like, you know how much I love you and everything, but I'm really struggling. And so I was like, well, you know, embrace the struggle. Like embrace it. Don't reject it. But I think you should try to figure out why it's such a hard thing for you to do, to smile when you're dancing. I think you really need to think about that. Like you need to go into a room and think about that, because like what I'm asking you, think of the title of the ballet, The Heart Space. I'm literally asking you, dance your heart out. Rip open your chest, expose yourself, and be like, dance from that space. And you're telling me you can't do that. And if you think I'm asking you to put a cheesy smile on your face, like plastered, then I've failed in communicating and I'll correct it. But that's not what I'm looking for at all. But you really need to question why it's so difficult for you to express joy when you're dancing, because that's a big problem. And that right there is not at all the same as losing a parent and going through that mourning period and having to just continue to find a way forward and still be bright and full. But it's a similar journey of, well, how do I, even if in my firmest beliefs I'm supposed to be serious when I'm dancing, how do I create a space that is more warm and
welcoming.
Yeah, and I think there was a kind of misinterpretation, like they were like thinking that I was suspecting them to be like in the corps de ballet of like Giselle or Coppelia and be like in the background, like, and I was like, no, not that. I'm not asking you to do that. I think I handled it well in saying, I think you should embrace that struggle and deal with it. Like, don't pretend it's not there. Like, don't just fake it, but like try to get into that and then see if you can redirect your energy. Because really it's about energy. For me, it's always energy. It's like, it's about the energy, right? So redirect it and then see if you can make it a natural extension of you listening to that music and you doing those moves, and then everybody sort of just came around.
That's what I remember.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was clear.
The show
happened. Yeah. It was
everybody
clear. Everybody was like, "Oh, we love this," and But I do remember the struggle in the beginning.
It was a journey.
Yeah.
And we're on the journey again.
Yes, we are. We are on the journey. So, and I'm ready.
Me too.
I'm ready to guide them. And hopefully not suffocate them.
No, I don't.
I mean, that's
see
a problem
that.
with choreographers,
Yeah.
You can be suffocating in a way that you don't give anybody any room to interpret anything, and then it's really uninteresting, I think.
What I love about being in the studio space with you is there's room for genuine laughter.
Oh yeah.
And the laughter is such a beautiful full belly experience and full body thing and a human experience. Everybody knows laughter. And to create space for that in the rehearsal, it's so genuine. And then it breaks up the tension for the dancer of I have to stay in the head.
Yeah, I think humor allows for spontaneity.
Yeah.
And then spontaneity will allow creativity to surface, definitely. Yeah. And so, but I'm not doing it to manipulate them. It's just the way I am, and it's also, I think I would suffer, like in the room. And so selfishly, I'm like, I'm gonna have a good time.
You have to have fun too.
I'm gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna poke fun at things, and I'm gonna laugh, and they're gonna laugh, and otherwise, I'm like, it's hard. It's a miracle that anything beautiful actually happens. Do you know what I mean? Like, you go into the studio, you don't know what's going to happen, and then miraculously this like beautiful thing surfaces. And I'm not going to be like, it's all me. It's the collaboration that makes it happen. Yeah. And then you're like, why not smile about it? Like, why just like struggle all the time,
Right.
And I can't be that person.
Right.
So, and some, and I think, you either love it or you hate it, one or the other. You know what I mean? I think most people love it.
Get out.
Right. If you hate it, embrace the hate and figure it out.
It's true.
And figure out why you hate it. Yeah.
It's very wise.
Yeah.
Embrace the hate.
Don't reject your feelings.
Yeah.
That's another yoga thing. Like, don't reject it. You have to embrace it. And then what are you going to do with it? Are you going to transform it, or are you going to sit with that? Right. So it's up to you.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. I'm so happy to be working with you in the studio again. And
I'm happy too.
It's been already such a pleasure. And thank you for sitting and talking to me about the Heart Space.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And I hope these seats will all be filled with others who want to experience the open giving that our dancers are going to be sharing on this stage. March 21st through the 23rd.